Well, hello everyone. My name's Catherine. I am the new library director here at McMillan Memorial Library. I started at the end of August. So when I came in, we were kind of right in the budget process, right? We were actually a little behind. Other city departments had already turned in their budgets. So I had about a week or two to get this ready and prepared for board approval. That being said, a little bit about me. I was the library director in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, up north. Worked there for about 10 years. Before that, I graduated with my master's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I got my undergrad at Lawrence University. So all my education is taken here in Wisconsin, though I am from Minnesota. I know that's going to be hard for everyone. She's a Minnesotan girl through and through. She loves her twins. But I'm also a Badger fan, obviously, because I'm an alumna. Anyways, so I had been through budget cuts before. That was something that I think the library board was looking for when they were looking for another director because of the situation that the library found itself in last year. Now, we're going to talk about this, but I don't know. Nobody knows me yet, but anytime I have the opportunity, I'm going to talk about how incredible this library is. So founded in 1890, pretty incredible, the McMillan Library has been just a mainstay in Wisconsin Rapids for its full tenure. Our mission is something that I think can be applied to most things, including our collections, our services, our programs, and our outreach, strengthening our community through lifelong learning. Something that's kind of embedded in every day. Our service at the desk, our programs, Carrie's kiddos winter reading program. It's gonna be very cute, it's bookworm themed. Anyways, 14,000 members have a Wisconsin Rapids library card. So that means they got their library card here at McMillan. 52% of the cards are from residents of Wisconsin Rapids. The remaining 48% come from surrounding communities. So people that live in the township of Grand Rapids, for example, any community that doesn't have a library in it. So it's actually a really incredible balance.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
what is is that a normal kind of representation like that you've seen in other libraries?
So that's such an interesting question because I think there's an opportunity for growth here. Just as we just happen to be located like beautifully right in the center of our county, right? So I think this is a potential.
Not really.
Are we?
No, we're on the south end of our
I
town.
thought we were right towards the middle. Is that Pittsville? Pittsville, okay. Still, we are just kind of, and hello Jill if she's watching from Marshfield. Marshfield and Rapids are kind of like the big libraries in this county. But compared to Marshfield, we pull in a lot of the non-resident users. I kind of was assuming because of location, but just because we're really wonderful, I think. That must be the reason. But yes, so we have the opportunity to kind of grow that statistically. For speaking from experience, at Rice Lake, we did have more non-resident users than resident users. But again, I think it's a balance. The community's collection, obviously, when you talk about libraries, people kind of default to thinking about our materials, which are wonderful, right? We have a strong collection that circulates well in our system, and that's something to be proud of. Last year, we had over 60,000 patron visits and over 200,000 circulations of physical materials. Again, these numbers are really low because of COVID impacts. So we're seeing this, I expect, oh my goodness, that button doesn't want to be pressed, friends. I'm expecting a number of our statistics to kind of double in the next year, including patron visits. McMillan programming, this is something that I'm really excited about expanding because our programming is incredible. Our library staff are wonderful, and the programs are what will draw other community members to this library. Last year we had 200 programs, which is pretty incredible, with thousands of people attending. And again, the numbers for this year are already double the attendance numbers for last year. So we're doing pretty good there. My hair keeps hitting this. Okay, and then technology at McMillan, right? This is something that's new and really one of our strengths. Look at that amount of Wi-Fi sessions. Over 200,000 uses of our Wi-Fi. So obviously that's not just taking place in this facility, right? People are accessing our internet around the clock because it's no longer kind of a luxury to get online, right? I consider it utility. People need access to the internet to do schoolwork, to bank, to get their health care. And McMillan is providing that for hundreds of thousands of different Wi-Fi sessions. So that's pretty incredible. In-person public computer uses is obviously a little down because there were some periods of closure in 21 still, but still 7,000 visits on their computers. And then this is pretty wonderful. We had 40,000 e-materials checked out through our digital library. So e-books, e-audiobooks, and e-videos. Okay, and then finally, kind of like the third really cool pillar of the library is outreach. So here at McMillan, we're really interested in bringing library services from inside the library until outside the library, right? Bringing the library out into the world. Now, there are a lot of different reasons to do this. Library staff take traditional library programs, right? Story time, technical outreach, reader's advisory, and they bring it out into the community. And why? This is actually essential because by doing this, we are breaking down barriers for our patrons and our community members. Now you think, oh my gosh, look at Carrie in a cow outfit. Punk cow, incredible. She doesn't seem intimidating to you, hopefully. But again, that's something that she works at, right? She works to cultivate a warm and welcoming demeanor because that's exactly what we need to do as librarians, right? Many of our patrons, many of our community members see the library as a place of authority, which kills me. We need to be here for our most vulnerable human beings. And by going out into the community, that becomes a little less scary, right? Once you've seen Carrie in a cow outfit, you are excited to come see her at the library, right? So that's really important too about bringing people into the library that might not have used our resources before. Because really everybody should have access to our mission, right? Lifelong learning. We want to create a community of learners. I think it's so easy, particularly when you get grown, to kind of get in a rut and stop learning and growing and changing. And that's what the library can do for our community. Okay, 2023 library budget. I know this is what we're all very excited to talk about. I was joking with Eric that I wasn't excited about talking about the budget, but I am actually. It's like I can't even not be excited because this is really, really essential to understanding how your library kind of operates. So I'm going to take us one step back. In 2022, the first kind of budget situation loomed for the library. I don't know how many people are familiar with that. Yeah, I think it took a lot of people by surprise. But basically, at the public hearing meeting, a motion kind of bubbled up that said we should cut the library $850K, I believe it was, which is an astronomical cut. A cut like that would close the library for the short term. We'd have to just demolish services in the long term. And then another kind of motion came up of a $150 cut, more manageable. Not ideal, but more manageable. And because those two groups couldn't agree, the library budget was spared in 2022. But that informed the library board's decision in creating the 23 budget, because we were very aware that cuts needed to happen. And again, for a community that is so supportive of its library, understandably people were upset when they were hearing the library board is making cuts. But the library board was trying to be proactive in that way. So what was cut by the library board moving into the 23 budget season? One full position, an FTE is what we call that, a full-time equivalent. So a 40-hour-a-week position, the business manager position. Now this was my recommendation. That position was unfilled. The person had retired. And that person also works completely behind the scenes. Never served on the public desk. For me, as the library director, I want to focus our attention back on public services. So that to me was, again, not an easy cut, but the low-hanging fruit per se, right? Because what do we need? We need humans that are working with our patrons, right? That are excited to do programs, that are interested in doing outreach. To a certain extent, much of the business office, the duties, I'm already used to do it. As a library director, I tend to be particularly hands-on, right? I want to code our bills. I want to build the annual report. I want to directly build the budget. And so those were a big part of that person's daily tasks. So I already knew I could absorb those things. The other main part of that position was ordering, supply ordering. Again, a library this size, we have a lot of supplies. But that is again something that can be kind of spread out fairly easy amongst staff, right? And the library board has been working with me to make that happen. And then finally, this person was in charge of kind of overseeing the supplies for the coffee shop, which is where we kind of come into our next change, which is fairly controversial, changing how the library operates the coffee shop. Now the coffee shop is my #1 comment from patrons, which I find wild. It really speaks to how incredible that was, right? That people in this community loved it. Unfortunately, we are just not able to sustain a service like that when we need to be making proactive cuts.
Is there a way to, and I don't know, within to maybe rent out like that space to?
Great question. So would we be able to rent out that space to, say, a coffee vendor, a business that actually has happened twice.
Okay.
2 different coffee shop entities have tried and failed to make it a successful business venture. Again, this is all pre-me, but from my understanding, that's when the library kind of stepped in and used library staff to run the coffee shop. I will say, 10 years ago when Lincoln was open, right across the street, the kiddos would come here. We needed that space, right? We needed food for those kids. Lots of things have changed, right? The middle school is no longer open. COVID has happened. Our actual walk-in count is still significantly lower than it was in our 2012, 2017 days. That being said, the coffee shop, again, was a little bit more of the hanging fruit for a lot of different reasons. Number one, the revenues and the supplies were around $30,000, kind of in its heyday. So they canceled each other out. So that revenue wasn't actually a profit. But when you're thinking about running an organization, what do you spend your money on? The staffing. The library was absorbing all of that staff. And that is just not appropriate. our library team needs to be doing essential library work. It's too important. And finally, again, the library, I really struggle when we have even line items that are labeled revenue. First of all, I don't want to base my operations on something as mercurial as coffee shop revenue. You can't count on it. I don't want to base my Carrie's salary on that. I don't want to base our utility bills on that. But I also do not want the city council to think, oh, this is an opportunity for the library to make money. Because that is not our role. That is not our mission. We have more important work to do. So a number of those decisions, a number of those factors went into those decisions. The coffee shop, again, like I love the cozy commons vibe, right? The encouraging people to linger. That's exactly what we want to be doing here, right? We want this to be the safe third space for our community. How can we do that without sinking thousands of dollars into that? And basically, we're just going to hopefully transition to more of a self-service model. There are so many cool machines. Renee, was it? Did you show me at that mid-state? They had this like beautiful wall of like machines. You go in and it's practically a robot serving you. So again, not as wonderful as a library staff getting you a cup of coffee, but still the important things, what we want to see are happening. And I don't lose staff time because, Joe has to make a pizza. But yeah, please know that that was not done lightly, and the community shared that loud and clear. Some of my staff as well. So we also, again, on top of this full-time position, we also kind of went in and cut significant line item budgets. So that means we went into collections, we went into building operations, and cut kind of significant amounts of money. To get kind of the details for you all, we cut $50,000 from buildings and grounds, a little over $70,000 from wages and benefits, and then an additional $20,000 to our collections budget. You'll kind of see a breakdown of our expenditures later on in my presentation, but so all in all, we cut about $150K. And we walked into council with that budget proposed. The other kind of important factor is moving from 22 to 23, we are losing $200,000 worth of revenue source. So just because of different amounts of carryover, but also different amount of county reimbursement money. And those two things I'll talk about in a little bit. But so we cut 150 through staff and materials, and then we're also losing $200,000 in revenue sources. So all in all, that's a big chunk of money. But what happens, those two kind of cancel out on the bottom line. So when we're walking into council, it appears that we're only cutting $2,500.
Was there not COVID, I mean, it seems like libraries would be ideal for COVID relief funds?
Yes, I can't speak directly to that because I wasn't here. The kind of COVID operating money was spent mostly in 2020 and 2021. But most of these things are operational. And the carryover, again, it depends. We might have more carryover to take into next year. It's just difficult to anticipate. That's a tricky balance. And then we're going to talk about the county reimbursement because it's so important. It's really confusing. So COVID kind of got those numbers pretty wonky, hence the $100,000 in a drop of revenue. But so yeah, those two things kind of canceled each other out.
Do COVID relief funds have to be applied for?
Do COVID funds, relief funds have to be applied for? Yes.
Okay, has the library applied for any?
I can't speak to that.
Okay.
Officially, the city of Wisconsin Rapids would have to apply on behalf of McMillan Memorial Library. We have received ARPA funding, but there are very specific requirements of what you can use for ARPA funding.
Maybe, and just to add on to what this gentleman's question, but are there still COVID relief funds available to be applied for now?
So the new question is, are there still COVID relief funds to be applied for? Yes, there is ARPA money, but again, most of this funding is not for operational expenditures. So that's a one-time special project per se. And also this is, each municipality, each county received ARPA funding. The municipality kind of gets to decide.
And I do have a question from earlier when you said that there was a proposal that bubbled up about cutting 850. The reason I am here and my question is, why are these cuts being proposed at the city council level?
So we'll talk about that at the end of this meeting.
Yeah.
Because again, I want to give everybody kind of a basic understanding of the budget, and then we can kind of dig into the questions. But again, to a certain extent, you know, I'm the library director. I did not make those suggestions. So it's going to be a little difficult trying to get into their brains.
Question, Catherine, on the 150,000 that you cut. Does that mean that the 2023 proposal is 150,000 less than the 2022 proposal?
Great question. No. Well, so we are coming, okay, so when we're looking at the city, right, the city gives us a specific amount of property taxes through the municipal, funds. Our request for 23 is less than the request from 22, and technically 21. So
why that 150,000?
not by 150,000, because remember, we're losing $200,000 worth of revenue. So we lost a certain amount of money. So the cut kind of makes up for that. So we don't actually look like we've cut 150, if that makes sense.
Yep, it's a wash. Just to follow up.
Yeah.
I need to get up to date on my math, but you had mentioned the 150 and the 200, and you said, so when everything balanced out, it comes to 2,500. I don't remember that kind of math.
Okay, I'm rounding up. I'm using kind of rounded numbers because again, the numbers are right here and everybody can see the actual numbers. Just in terms of so we cut 146,721 from our 2023 budget, walking into that. And then we are anticipating $100,000 in carryover for 23. And then $558,950 for our Wood County reimbursement.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I know there's some questions about the level of that.
Yes, again, so much of this is complicated because a lot of this is still in flux. So again, last year, the fund balance applied was 195 versus the $100,000 that I'm forecasting. So right there's $95,000 that we're not receiving, theoretically. And then last year for our Wood County reimbursement, the money we get from Wood County, it was $642,851. And again, theoretically, we're going to $558,950 for a loss of $178,922. Yeah, math is, we can I can walk everybody through this, I can give everybody handouts, it's just speaking specifically is not successful as we just saw. Anyways, so yes, so the loss of revenue kind of doubled down on the appearance that the library didn't cut enough to offset what the council wanted to see. But again, it gets a little complicated, right? Because we did make cuts. Okay, so here we are. 2023 library revenues. This was the budget put forth by the library board. So you see the darkest, largest part of our revenues is Wisconsin Rapids property taxes. 30% of our operations comes from outside of the city, specifically Wood County and other adjacent counties. And then 1% that miscellaneous is things like book sale, photocopies, fines. So you see kind of, the fines aren't bringing in any money for us, right? The book sale, again, I don't want to call it a waste of space because I've got a library board member that loves it, but I covet that space for book displays, everyone. So yes, so this is kind of the breakdown of where we get our money. And this is fairly average, right? Some communities get less money from their counties, some get more. Though we are really fortunate to get 30% from Wood County. We get a lot of funding from Wood. Yes?
Can you put approximate dollar figures on those 69 and 30% figures?
Colin and I were debating, should I include numbers, and it makes my slides look very dirty, so yes, I can give you specific...
Rounded figures.
Rounded. Are we going to be happy with rounded figures? I don't know. Okay, so we are asking for $1.288 million from the city of Rapids in 23.
1.8.
1.288.
1.288.
And from our Wood County and adjacent county, it's about 560. So a little over $500,000. And then that 1% is less than $20,000. The bulk of which is inexplicably photocopies. They're a gold mine, who knew? But yes, so here we go. This is where I'm going to remind us of this 48% of library users that come from outside of the city. So those are the people where their physical checkouts result in that 30%, that county reimbursement. Of course, let's not discount our Wisconsin Rapids residents, right? So every time I live in Rapids, every time I check out a material, 100% of the cost of that cert is paid for by my city taxes. Whereas, who lives in Grand Rapids? Oh, white sweatshirt in the back. Grand Rapids is 2 blocks from my house, but is it a township? Township of Grand Rapids, every time you check out a material, you bring in that 30%. It gets a little bit more complicated, so everybody, we gotta buckle up because this is very important. Okay, so county reimbursement is something that is mandated by the state of Wisconsin. It's a state statute. Why? Because I think the state of Wisconsin acknowledged how important libraries are, right? Bedrock of democracy. But also, we're we're easy to cut, right? Often when cities are going through cuts, the library is the first to go. So by doing this, they're ensuring that every single person in the state of Wisconsin has library. There's a bathroom upstairs. So the state of Wisconsin is requiring that every single person has access to library materials, and they put that responsibility on the county. So the county can do this in a number of ways, right? They can have their own county library system, like they do to our neighbors to the east, Portage, right? Portage is a county system. We do not get any money from them because every single one of their residents is covered by their Portage County library system. In Wood County, however, we do not have a Wood County library system. We have municipal libraries. So every time someone from Grand Rapids checks out a material, Wood County has to reimburse the city, the library, for a certain percentage of that unit cost. So this is how we get to this kind of convoluted formula. It is important, but it's also kind of outdated. This was developed back in the 90s before we had things like digital materials, right? Before the library became like one of the only places for people to hang out without being a consumer, right? Just to exist in space is not something that can be accommodated in most places these days. It didn't take into consideration programming, people needing to just take a break, right? All of those things. It only focuses on two different things. Operating expenditures, any money we spend on our operations, and physical total circulation. Anything that is physically checked out here, it could be a game, it could be a book, it could be an audiobook. If it's physically checked out here, it goes towards that calculation. And that becomes a unit cost, kind of a general cost per circulation. Again, is it actually an actual cost of unit circulation? No, because it's not talking about all of the different things that the library is doing. It's just trying to kind of give you a ballpark number. So you take that ballpark number and you times your non-resident circulation. So every time someone from Grand Rapids checks out a material, we get that Act 150 money. That's just state statute, that county reimbursement money. It gets more complicated because the state requires counties reimburse that amount by at least 70%. It does not have to be reimbursed at 100%. So that makes things a little trickier, right?
Is it possible, you know, the bulk of your lost revenue comes from your guesstimate of county input, is that correct?
You mean the $200,000 loss of revenue?
Right,
Half.
half of it. And that's just a guesstimate because the county hasn't decided yet how much they will fund.
So this is a guesstimate. We have the actual number of what, so historically Wood County has reimbursed the libraries at 85%. And that is the budget number that I put in for 2023, the 560.
The last year it was 100%.
Last year was 640.
Is it possible to ask the county to make their determination prior to when you have to submit your budget?
Yes. So the city's budget and the county's budget kind of are trundling along at the same time. As of right now, the recommendation for Wood County from their operations committee is to fund the libraries at 100%. This would increase our funding from Wood County by 100%. By $100,000. So just with the decision of the Wood County Board, we're already in a much better spot, theoretically. But, have you ever tried to get somebody to pay something for more than they have to? Doesn't always go that well, right? There's been a lot of work for a lot of years to show the Wood County Board the essential resources that the Wood County Libraries provide to its citizens. And hopefully, they will follow the operations recommendation. Ironically, we will find out if this is approved the same day of the final council meeting, November 15th. Yeah. Oh, I thought it was gonna be in the morning.
I thought they said that they meet, like, I don't, maybe I'm.
Okay. Oh,
Bill
yeah.
would know.
Bill, when,
Yeah, that's true. We're going to meet in the morning
Okay,
and
at
have our
9:30.
budget hearing, and then we'll vote on the budget as presented.
in the morning, Bill?
But now, yes, but now the talk is that the city,
Yeah. Bill, you're getting ahead of me.
okay, all right, which I think is ridiculous.
Okay. Remember, Bill, Facebook, we're being live streamed.
Okay,
Okay, so yes, already we're seeing kind of how many complicating things are in this. By funding us at 100%, that would increase our funding by $100,000. Other libraries aren't going to get that much, we just kind of get the lion's share of the non-resident circulation. That being said, I want to remind you that this is all being used from data from 2021. So technically, this is a reimbursement of money we've already spent. That's why county reimbursement is what I call it, right? Because we're doing operating expenditures that happened in 2021. And we're using physical circulation numbers also from 21 to find the calculation of the money you will receive in 23. And this is why libraries, the funding gets a little complicated, right? Because what happens in 1 year will impact us 2 years from now. Okay, so breakdown of county reimbursement. You see where we're getting most of our money from the county, Wood County. We get a small amount of money from Juneau and Clark, and the Jackson circulations are so few. I think in 21 it was like 9 circs that we don't even charge them for that because it would be like $14. And then you're angering a whole county for $14. It's just not worth it. So we are bringing in that much money from outside of the city. We are unique in that way, right? Because every time someone, again, not to pick on you, comes in from Grand Rapids and drives on our roads, they aren't contributing to that, right? Again, when they come to the library and check something out, they do contribute. Do I wish it was at 100%? Yes. Is that under this library director's control? No. But 70, 85, 100% is incredible. We are the only city department to bring in this level of revenue from outside of the city resources.
Is that true for Marshfield too?
Is that true for Marshfield too?
Yeah.
So yes, Marshfield does not have as much non-resident circulation. I can get you the number afterwards, but yeah, we
They
are.
are also buying the county money for
Yes,
their library.
yeah, and yeah, again, I don't want to use the word vying because I do believe that like a library user will love multiple libraries, and that's what we want to encourage.
Yeah.
But yes, theoretically, Marshfield and Wisconsin Rapids could both earn money from non-resident checkouts.
What about all the little Lester libraries that are all over?
Yep.
They get money.
Yep, they get money just like this. So anytime someone from Grand Rapids drives to ARPAN would receive that county reimbursement funds. So it's from wherever you're checking out your materials, because you need that physical circulation number. Good questions. Okay, so here we are, library expenditures. This is what we spend our money on. In 2023, the vast majority of our expenditures are the most valuable part of the library, our staff, right? 60% of our budget is going to staff, which is pretty average for our municipal budget. We have contracts, supplies, buildings and grounds, nearly 30%, collection materials, 8%, and then programming and technology coming in at 4.3%. So you can see where the cuts would have to come from, right? And when we were building the 23 budget, we took money from the three larger situations, right? We took a full-time position, around $70,000 from wages and benefits, $50,000 from contract, supplies, and building grounds, and then around $20,000 from the collection. So kind of prorated to kind of link back to how much we're spending on each budget. Okay, so to take a step back, let's walk through the recent city process. October 24th, that is when the library presented our budget to the committee of the whole. And that is when this kind of new situation occurred. A councilman made the motion to cut the library for $750. Ultimately, that motion failed, but then another councilman made the motion to cut us at $350, and that did pass. The interesting thing about the committee of the whole is it acts like a committee. So it's an approved recommendation, but the full council needs to approve it, which is fairly confusing, right? So on November 1st, the city council had a special full city council meeting, and that recommendation was reversed by 5-3 vote. So as of right now, the budget for the library is what the library board presented. That being said, we've learned that the council can change its mind, right? As new information comes in, they will update and change their opinion. So we have a public hearing for the full budget on November 10th. That's kind of when citizens are welcome to share their thoughts on the budget. You can speak for it, you can speak against it. Really, this is your time to kind of share your thoughts to your community, but also to the council. And then finally, November 15th, that's the council meeting in November. That is when the budget will be formally adopted. So we've got a little bit of ways before we get to, the budget's been approved.
Catherine, I know this probably isn't your department, but where can we, do you know if they published that preliminary budget and where we can find that? Because I have not been able to find that on the website.
I do not believe that's available online.
Okay. So we have to go and knock on the mayor's door or see it?
Yes, I would speak. Yeah, this is where I'm so new to the community. I don't know how to recommend this
Does anyone else
avenue.
On
know?
your city council member's door.
Okay.
They're the ones voting.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems like, it's less than, 5 days before the public hearing, and that's a big document. I think the citizens of Wisconsin Rapids ought to be able to see that, and study the document in advance. I mean.
So I actually, obviously as a librarian, this kills me because I want to give you all the information you want. Hopefully next year I'm going to kind of expand this and kind of do a walkthrough of the full city budget, because it's so confusing. How can you as citizens make informed decisions? So I think that's really valuable, and I'm I've already noticed this and kind of moved forward with that.
There is a preliminary budget draft on the city website.
Oh, there is?
It's available.
Oh, is it 23 or is it 22?
It is 23.
Okay,
Well,
well,
that's-
that's,
Scroll
fine
almost
last
all the way
year's.
down, and then it's a 2023 budget summary.
All right.
maybe apply at the library with those research skills. But yes, so, your point is very valid. Okay, so this is kind of just to give you an idea of the magnitude of this cut for our budget. The proposed budget cut is that top left, in the realm of our full sources of revenue. And then here is kind of a breakdown of what would happen. So it would be a little under 30% of our operations if that cut did happen. Final decisions of how the cuts would be going to the library board.
This is the one that
Is-
the county proposed.
No, this is the city's proposed cut that was recently voted down.
So that's not the 750,000 that Alderman Delaney put out first, that's the one that Matt Zacher or?
Yes,
Alderman
this is the
Zacher?
350 that was approved
Okay.
at the October 24th meeting.
Yeah, just a minute, just a minute.
Would this be the time to ask Barb's original question of where did the draconian 800,000 and 700,000 figures germinate from? I mean, they're very large numbers.
They are very large numbers. I can't speak to 850 because I was not here last year when that cut was made. But the 750 figure, Councilperson Delaney used statistics from the DPI, the Department of Public Instruction, to kind of try and figure out the amount of cut that he thinks would be reasonable.
I have a suggestion. Call your alder person, find out how they have voted, and ask them for their motivation. I called mine, and I found out something interesting. At first, he just said it was about money and the future of our community. We don't have much money. But when I probed further and talked about the community library, he admitted that he wanted to abolish the community aspect of the library. He wants the library to be a place where you just come get your materials and you go home. And he does, and I think that some of the motivation going on with the dramatic cuts. Call your alderperson and find out why they're voting or not voting a certain way. You'll get some interesting information, I think.
Can you share the name of your alderman, please?
Mr. Zacher.
Okay, all right.
Well, I work for the school district and I'm confused about the connection between the DPI and our city budget.
Yeah, so just like
Anybody else?
just like public schools, public libraries are under DPI. So libraries have specific standards, public libraries, that we have to meet every year. And most of those you don't have to worry about because the library director takes care of them. But for an example, a city of our size needs a library director with a master's degree. I need to spend a certain amount of hours in the library every week. We need to spend a certain amount of money on materials. Every year, McMillan has to send in this annual report that kind of gives all of our statistics to DPI. But here's the thing about statistics, right? They can be manipulated. They can be used to tell a story, potentially from a certain point of view. So again, I am quite impressed that you would go to DPI because that does show a level of interest in library statistics that I've never seen from another council person. But yes, so something that's kind of been added to this budget situation is kind of the caveat of the Wood County reimbursement funding. On November 1st, the council was made aware that Wood County might reimburse us at 100%, and that would give us an additional $100,000 worth of funding. So as of right now, our budget is approved on the caveat that if Wood County approves us at 100%, then our Wood County appropriation would go up, but our municipal appropriation would go down by that same amount. So again, in future years, I would make the argument that they are taking money away from the library that we've already spent. It's reimbursement. On the flip side, on Tuesday, I wanted to ensure that the library could continue in its services as we are. Whatever happens, the council has made it clear that budget cuts need to come from the library. The library board understands that. So I would rather have those cuts be made in-house with the library board's recommendations, rather than getting a cut of $350K. That would, be fairly devastating to the library's budget and operations and services. So again, we do have to be mindful here. So not ideal, but again, we would still be coming in at the budget that the library board approved and presented to the council. So, yeah.
I was at that meeting and I want to know if you can help me understand if I understood it right.
Sure.
Both Acker, is it? And Delaney believe that the city is taking out too much debt, correct? And they don't like to see them taking out debt because that's not how they run their business.
Yes.
Right? So they decided that to be good aldermen, so they would figure out a way to cut, so they wouldn't have to take out debt, correct?
Yes.
But then Tim Delaney explained they're taking out debt not based on what expenses, but for capital expenses. So they're two different things, and they're yet mixing them together.
Yes.
How do we get them to understand that, and to get citizens to understand that capital expenses are a totally different deal, because it's improving your community.
Yeah. I think the short answer is this is really complicated, right? And our community doesn't really have the wherewithal to understand this. We're busy, most people are burned out, this is boring and hard. But this isn't something that can be figured out in an afternoon, right? This is where hopefully the library can take a step in educating our populace about how our budget is created and why different things are happening.
So can you just help me understand, am I right in thinking that's what they were saying?
Yes.
And so it just came out of this, I was brought in to be an alderperson and I'm supposed to be in care of the budget, and so I'm going to do what I think, and I'm just going to make sure that we don't take out debt, and therefore the first place that looks easy to grab from is the library. And that's the question I think you're asking is too, why is it just the library? Nobody seems to understand that. That's very disturbing.
So this is kind of where I can't answer for the councilman, right? If you were at the November 1st meeting, I did ask why the library was taking on the responsibility of debt from the city. If this was kind of a citywide cut, the library would have, not be happy, but it would be our duty to be a part of that. but it does seem particularly focused on the library. Other city departments have made some cuts, kind of the proactive cuts we also made. But I do think kind of the larger picture is there is a lot of confusion.
I'd just like to make a statement. My name is Jim Keir. I live in Grand Rapids, not Wisconsin Rapids, but I do frequent the library fairly regularly. And I worked for the state of Wisconsin for over 30 years. We dealt with budget cuts all the time. And for anybody to recommend a 30% budget cut from any entity, basically in my mind is extremely irresponsible. Let alone an $800,000 budget cut or a $750,000 budget cut, which would, as you say, devastate the library. And we value the library here in the southern part of Wood County extremely highly. And again, I don't know if highly irresponsible is the right term, but 3 people voted for a $750,000 budget cut, which essentially is over 60% of your budget.
Yes.
When I probed further with my alderperson, I kept probing beyond the money. This is what I was told. I was told that the library is duplicating services that otherwise are available in this community. Elderly people can go to the senior center, and I was told young people in trouble can go to the Boys and Girls Club. So we don't need community at the library because there's other places to go. And I was told those 2 things as examples of why we don't need the library by this person who voted for drastic cuts for the library. So though some of these council people that are voting to cut the budget drastically are either very uneducated about a community, or there's some other agenda.
I think the idea that the library is kind of an outdated book repository kind of lingers, right? And it is the library's job. We're really bad at tooting our own horn. We're so bad at it. We're really bad. We need to hire a marketing team or something. But we don't have any money. Oh, that's why. But yes, so that's one of the things that I'm going to be really focusing on during my first year, right? Doing some serious outreach, doing some education about all of the wonderful things that exist here for the public. Because a lot of people aren't aware. If you haven't been to the library, you're probably not aware, right? I mean, look at this incredible theater. That's pretty nice. We're the only place where the deaf community can enjoy a movie. Like, that to me is valuable. We're a place where kids can come without having to pay, right? Because the Boys and Girls Club is not free.
And there's limits. Not every kid gets to go. They have caps on who can go there. Just if you call your people, that is not an open to anyone situation.
Well, and a lot of our families don't feel comfortable with the Boys and Girls Club, right? If you're particularly adverse to, interactions with authority, you might have been kind of turned away or turned off by the Boys and Girls Club, though it is an incredible resource, right? But I think many of us in this room, we're aware of kind of the community infrastructure cracks that we have, but we're just like, those things were just blown wide open by COVID. And so it's going to be my job to kind of educate the council about that.
Well, it's not just your job, it's actually each one of us that live here, we have the responsibility to communicate with our aldermen, show up at the meetings, which is a pain in the ass.
I thank you for saying that. Again, it's the library's job to provide the information that you all need to make the decisions that are right for you. Carrie?
I just wanted to say, I'm the youth services librarian here, and yesterday, in my first hour of being here, I helped a lady who has been through a lot of trauma, and she just needed somebody to talk to. And that was my main job to help her with. She just needed somebody. And then I got an email from the school district asking if we could help get a digital library card for a Ukrainian family who is moving to our community so they can try to start to learn English. So that, 2 things in the first hour of my day yesterday, which kind of shows exactly what we do.
The variety of services provided. Okay, flannel.
Flannel. Rick had mentioned what his alderman had said about, there's the, the senior citizens thing, and then the Boys and Girls Club. In a library, you have a multi-generational construct that you don't have in either of those places. And that is just
incredible, right?
Yeah, it is.
And even more than that, like where else in our community do you see such a diversity, right? Of all ages, of all classes, of all whatever. It's really unique. And again, hopefully we can show this whole community how important the library is.
I was just going to say, overall, on the business aspect of selling the community, Rapids has gotten new Boys and Girls Club, the millions of dollars upstairs in here throughout the library, and the ball fields and so on, and the new field, the football field at Lincoln High School. Those are major factors when a corporation is thinking about relocating. Where do we want our families? And then you have the quote-unquote normal husband and wife situation, and they're moving with the company. We want to go to a community that has all kinds of venues for our young family to grow up in. And so with the investment of the money, and it's always about money. It's always about money. And so with the investment here, I don't know why MAP wants to shut this down. And it's really putting, with all the effort, again, with all these different facilities in the local community, upgrading, that they want to take one of the main attractions to the community out.
Yes.
How do the solar panels fit into the budget? And the second part of that is, has it been calculated how much money the panels save the operating budget on an annual basis?
Okay, the question was about solar panels. How is that factoring into our budget this year? And are the panels currently saving us money? If anybody watched the October 24th, the mayor did bring this up. It is a bugaboo. The 6-year period of the library loaning or renting the solar panels from Viking Electric is coming to an end this summer. The tentative final balloon payment is around $140K. So again, that's a significant amount of money that we could be using elsewhere, which is kind of the point of that. As of right now, the solar panels aren't truly saving the library money on a month-to-month basis, because we are paying for electric from Water and Light, and then we're also paying off our loan to Viking Electric.
But that loan will be paid off next year.
But that loan would theoretically be paid off next year, and that $2,400 payment goes to that balloon final payment, right? So every month we are paying towards that loan. Again, it is a complicated situation, and ultimately the decision will be made by the library board about how to proceed.
And then when the panels were originally installed, there was a fundraising effort to be able to help pay off the panels, and how much money was raised from that.
Yeah.
We know that money has been raised. It is currently in the endowment, so that would be a decision kind of directed by the library board.
Oh, we don't know how much it is?
Because that money was donated specifically for the panels.
Yes, yes. So again, I'm not anticipating any issues with the library board. Doug?
Thank you. As Catherine mentioned, the solar panels are a very complicated proposition. The library / city is probably not in a position to gain anything from having those panels until that process is played out where we purchase them. At that time, I think there would be you could speculate there would be a substantial savings to the library. But that is going to be a very hard fight with the city council, I believe. Number one, we have to ensure that the $150,000 that's incorporated in the budget now as what I like to call a placeholder for any contractual agreement we come to or Catherine negotiates with the solar entity Viking. We're going to need that to proceed.
Scott confirmed it was 140.
And that's a firm figure? Or
Yes.
is there room for negotiation?
No.
No?
That's the number.
I believe there will, I believe we can, but we'll talk about that
Bold
later.
move, Doug.
But secondly, I think that to ensure that we capture the full value of those panels, we have to keep them up there. I mean, to tear them down now would be ridiculous. And it would be counterintuitive that to anything that, as an example, Councilman Zacher is promoting. If you want to save money, that is the absolute best way we can save money. One of the most common sense ways we can save money. So to give up on it now because we're in the midst of these budget cuts and we don't want to give you another $150,000, you know what? I'm the former county board chair, and sometimes to make money, to increase revenues, you have to spend money. That's a simple fact of life. You don't let your house fall apart. If you have to borrow money to put a roof on, that's what you do, and that's a necessity. And that's beyond paying the heating bills and the electric bills every month. And so that's kind of the dynamic we're talking about here. And for, I think, the three city councilmen not to be able to embrace that as logical and reality, man, boggles my mind. I don't know about yours, but I'm wondering what they're doing there. And so to the solar panels, back to the solar, my original point, keep your eye on that situation because we need to, as a community, endorse that process and realize that there's some value up there. We can't let it go now. We've got too much money stuck in it.
Yes, in the back.
Could you explain to me the difference between a municipal library and a county library? In other words, if our municipal library was a county library, would the city pay less in taxes? And
yes.
Why do some counties be a county library and why is there a municipal library?
Well, I can't speak to why Portage went with a county library system versus municipal individual.
I understand that. I just want to know the difference between the two.
Yep. Yeah. So when you're thinking about funding, we're getting money from a number of sources. If we were just a county facility, the vast majority of our funds would be coming from the county. The library director wouldn't go to city council. They would be a department of the Wood, for this example, Wood County. That is a question that I kind of received from a councilman, like, I thought you were a county library. And we definitely are not. The library staff are city employees. This building is owned by the city, operated by the library board. Most of the members are appointed by the mayor. We do have some Wood County representation because they do bring in such a formidable amount of money for us. So that's the main difference. The city, potentially you might be questioning, the city does have the opportunity to exempt themselves from the county tax that they would pay if they did not provide their citizens a library.
We did.
They did exempt it. Yes, we're exempted, but I'm saying, so the city would have to pay that tax if they didn't have a library. Because citizens would no longer be paying for their library services through property taxes. They would be instead required to pay through their, their county taxes, yes, if that makes sense.
I don't have a library on my property tax.
So citizens of Wisconsin Rapids would still pay.
Yes, it would just be different.
It would
Just
probably
maybe
be
a little less,
though,
little
right?
less.
So the citizens of Wisconsin Rapids would pay less.
Thank you.
Yeah, but,
Do you know how much?
officially this year it was $500,000. So we get 1.28 from the city, so it would be less.
I think the reason we're not, county library is because there's two big cities in Wood County. And in Pittsville, three big cities. And in I think in Portage, there's just one big city that covers, there's a very rural Portage County.
So the comment was potentially we don't have the county library system because of kind of Marshfield and Rapids, north versus south. Frankly, it's just most Wisconsin libraries are municipal. Most Minnesota libraries are county. It's just kind of the culture of the state. There are a couple of county libraries, Portage being obviously, Brown County, Door County, but the vast majority of the libraries are municipal in the state of Wisconsin.
Portage County has 3 libraries, one in Elman, one in Belmont, and one in the city of Wisconsin.
Fourville. Fourville.
4, right, 4.
Yeah, yes. Yes. Yeah.
What do you have for staff? And then you said they're city employees. What do you have for full-time employees and what do you have for part-time employees?
So moving forward, next year, we will have 18.25 FTE, so full-time equivalent. Currently, we have a full-time library director, a full-time adult services librarian, a full-time teen librarian, and a full-time youth services librarian, and a full-time circulation manager librarian. And then we have full-time and part-time customer service leads, front desk workers, and then shelvers.
How many total employees do you have actually?
30-ish, 28, 27, I think. I printed out 27 packets.
And how many volunteers?
Pardon?
How many volunteers?
Volunteers? I think we haven't restarted the volunteer program since COVID.
When the volunteer program was going, it was up to 70 volunteers.
Holy cannoli, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
So when you say 30 people, a lot of those are not full-time though?
Most of those people aren't full-time. So all of the shelvers are 10 hours a week. So we have 4 full-time equivalents of 10-hour-week employees.
I think that's part of where the council may be coming from, and it's still confusing to me also. Because they're looking at the number of bodies, not necessarily full-time versus part-time. And that's what I was trying to get you to differentiate, how many are actually full-time completely. And I think that's obviously a lot less than what your part-time status is. And I wanted to make that point that you only have this many full-time employees and the rest of the library is part-time. Even though you have a physical number of bodies, that doesn't equate to a certain number of hours.
Yes, that's why I was talking about 18.25 FTEs, full-time equivalents. Okay, so Okay, so what can we do? The number one thing our patrons can do is come visit the library. I know it seems silly, but honestly, the number of times I've heard patrons say they don't want to come to the library because they don't want to make work for us, please. I know. Come, check the materials out. Don't go to the bookstore, Elizabeth. Check those out. We need those circulations. Right? That's the second thing.
We don't have a bookstore in Wisconsin.
I meant the book sale. The book sale.
Okay.
Elizabeth is on the board. We text often about her going to the book sale and me begrudging the loss of circs. And then sharing your love of the library with your community. Those are the things we're asking our patrons to do. Because that's really what can make this happen for us. Doug?
Is there a way that you track people that, as you like to say, or linger in the library without checking out a book? Is that somehow recorded and go into the formula?
What do you mean formula?
Well, I mean as far as usage of the library.
Yeah, so that's one of the stats we track.
And how do you
Patron visits.
Okay. And how
Door
do you do
count.
that? Okay.
Door count. Every time you come in. Click.
So for somebody who doesn't live in the city.
Yes.
What are our,
You can check out more every
no,
time you come.
I am here at least.
I mean, yes. You are my cash cow. Check out just stacks of
And I even pay my fines.
Don't get me started about fines. I hate library fines.
But, you know, obviously we don't elect the aldermen.
Yes.
What do you suggest we do? Because we really, you know, they might not listen to those of us who don't elect them. I don't know.
And I think you might be right. I think there was an outpouring of support from this community, both from Rapids and from outside of Rapids. And we need to be aware that council, of course, is going to be focused on the people in the city. But if you are a non-city resident, I would recommend that you speak to your county board rep and encourage them to come to the libraries, all of the libraries in Wood County, because they're incredible. And we're doing a lot of great work. And theoretically thank them for funding us at 100%.
Well,
It's just as valuable.
If they fund us if the county funds at 100%, which, I mean, I live in Rudolph, so I'm not in the city either, but, thank you all for living in the city. But, if the county does pay at 100%, I don't want the city to say, oh, we're getting more money from the county, so now we can cut the budget more. How can the county stop them from doing that?
The county cannot stop them from doing that. But yes, this is where it becomes really tricky because we could see kind of a tit for tat mentality here that hopefully we can avoid.
All this time, so now you're paying.
Exactly. So what's so complicated about this situation is if we do have kind of this substantial cut, you know, the $350 in operations, then in 2 years, the amount of money we will be receiving from Wood County reimbursement will also go down. So what we would see is a major cut in 23 and then another cut in 25. I've kind of lived this. When I was library director of Rice Lake, we had kind of a major cut citywide in 2013. Every city department lost staff. Hundreds of thousands of dollars cut from the budget. 2 years later, in 2015, the library had to cut more staff, while other city departments did not, because their outside the city funding wasn't impacted. So that's where kind of this very tricky downward spiral can start. And again, hopefully Wood County will fund us at 100%. That's what would be equitable, right? To make sure that the Grand Rapids user of the library and the City of Rapids user of the library is paying the same amount. That doesn't always happen, and we at the library have no control over that. But yes, this could be potentially a very tricky situation moving forward. Kim?
One thing that you can do if you don't live in the city, besides obviously coming to visit and checking stuff out, is talk to your friends and family members who do live in the city and encourage them to contact their elder person or to go to the meetings. You know, it's great that so many people showed up for the meetings recently, but you gotta go more. You gotta go all the time. And I know it's a pain, but they are live on Facebook, so you can watch them live on Facebook and you can comment right there on Facebook. So that is an option as well.
Yeah. Thanks to Tyler and his crew. They're live on Facebook.
That's right.
City of Wisconsin Rapids, Facebook. Yes, Bill.
In Nakusa, they just passed their budget to City of Nakusa. And the library come in at 19%, though. Nakusa Library, 19% increase. And there was quite a discussion on it. Brad Hamilton also serves on the county library board. And there was discussion about, well, and they accepted their budget. And it was brought up about the fact that, well, now Nakusa is getting 100% from the county. You know, that's every county library, every library in the county got that 100%.
We haven't gotten it yet, Bill.
No, we haven't gotten it yet. And don't even talk about taking it back. But anyways, the fact is that they did increase, they did have an increase in budget and they did approve it. So people are afraid to say that when you get 100% from the county, because they started out at 70%, statutorily they have to.
Yes.
And then we've increased it on the county board since I've been there. I think it was 85%. And so the three people that are on the library board, the county library board, went to the operations committee and asked for 100%. And they got a unanimous decision to do that. So.
Which is great.
But that's going to the...
It has not been approved yet. Yes.
I just want to say that I think that it does help, even if you're not a city of Wisconsin Rapids, for you to go and speak up. I don't go to the library, and I said that at the thing, and I kind of feel foolish for saying it, but I value the fact that we have services like this in our community. I'm not from the city of Wisconsin Rapids, I'm from Grand Rapids. I wasn't sure if I could get up and speak, and I did, and I wasn't prepared like a lot of people were, but I did, and I spoke on behalf of people who are not library users. Now I'm finding out that there's a lot to do here in the library, and I plan on maybe becoming more of a library user in the future, but it doesn't matter if you use the library or not. There's value to your city, and I think that's something that's forgotten about people who pay taxes, is it doesn't matter always if you're the one that uses or not, there's value to your community if you use,
just
you pay for,
the public education aspect, right?
Yeah.
I don't have kiddos, but I'm happy to pay.
For my school.
For my school, because I value them, and I want my kiddos in my community to have a great education.
And there's value regardless, and I think if you get up and speak, even if you're not comfortable, like I'm really not comfortable, I got up and spoke even though I didn't plan on it. I think it did, I hope it mattered, because I think they would have passed the 350 or would have dropped it down to 150 like Dean Veneman had proposed. So, I mean, I think it's not comfortable getting up and speaking, but I think the more people that show up to November 10th and speak in the positive for this, or the negative if you prefer not to pay for it, I hope that they're listening to the people that are speaking to them.
Yeah, I agree with that, Kay, and I think that makes me very nervous if we give the impression that, well, if you don't live in the city of Wisconsin Rapids, check out materials, but really the aldermen they're not gonna listen to you. And I think that's a scary message, because just like he said, this city is all of our city. And it is to all of our benefit that this city thrives, does more than just survive, that it thrives. And we all have to speak out. I have a friend in Grand Rapids who wrote
beautiful emails to all of the aldermen that voted for the cuts. And I think that made a difference, obviously it made a difference. So, you know, we've never ever in Wisconsin, as long as I've lived here, thought of ourselves as in city, where this, and Grand Rapids is not part of that city. We all use the facilities, and good facilities draw young families to this community. They draw corporations to this community, and it benefits everybody. So I just don't want the message to be, this is really an in-city problem. It's not.
Thank you.
I think, be careful.
And to Katie's point, I just feel like I'm kind of speaking on behalf of, I work with a lot of families in poverty, and I want to speak for them that live in this community, that use the library for the internet, for the computer access, for job creation. It's you know, when you mentioned there's not that many people, or there's elderly place and a kid's place, where does a 35-year-old person go who needs a job and has to research that and needs internet access to do that? I feel like, you know, it's not just a book depository. It's really a place where any level of person in any. So I'm speaking for families in poverty.
Yes.
Who I want to advocate for them.
Yes, please know that I want everybody to feel welcome here.
Yeah.
I am sharing what I've been told directly by council and the mayor.
But they're only gonna listen to the city?
You can just let me know that.
So I was at the October 24th meeting, and it was very interesting to that first meeting, and they just, you know, completely ignored my comments, and just, you know, and you know, it didn't seem to take much to go from the, you know, 750 down to, you know, and you know, see that just barely not squeak through, and then, you know, the 350, you know, go right through. It was really, I wasn't able to make it. I had a previous commitment at the November 1st meeting, but I watched online, and I really do thank everyone who came and spoke. And it was interesting to see, one of the aldermen did change his vote, and that Alderman Pollack, and that was, you know, I think that was, you know, so key. And I think so often the aldermen, I mean, they're doing, I mean, they really run this, I mean, there's so much that is going on, and they have such a lot of responsibility to all of us, and it's important, the work that they're doing, and I don't want us to like attack them, but I also think that, you know, we do need to invest that some time into following what's going on. You can sign up for emails from the city. If you're not aware, to get notices, public notices on all the meetings. All you have to do is contact the city clerk, and that will be sent right to your inbox, so you know the agendas, you can, you know, access the minutes and things. It's just really important for people to let their aldermen know when they vote, you know, in a way that they want, as also in the negative. So I live right in town here, and I'm really proud that I get to contribute my tax dollars, to all the services that the city provides. And, you know, I think about, you know, the people that, you know, my taxes are contributing to. And, I mean, it's a vast amount, you know, I mean, but when we all pool together, we can create these amazing, you know, opportunities for the whole community. And I feel for people that, you know, are struggling financially, but I also think that the more that we are pulling, you know, together, and that, you know, I'm not going to be able to have, you know, a great public library in my backyard and stuff for my neighborhood. But if we all come together and we create this, which we have, I mean, this was a draw to us when we came to the community, I mean, 20-some years ago. It was like, oh, we can come, it was amazing. there was amazing jazz and folk and, just children's performers that were just amazing. And we were just blown away at the, opportunities that we had right here in Wisconsin Rapids, so thank you.
Yes, I do want to echo that it can be easy to be grumpy, right? When someone makes a decision that you don't agree with. But I do want to remind everyone that serving on council, being our mayor, those are complicated, tiring, exhausting positions. And I will say that every single councilman member, the mayor, they've all been very willing to meet with an over-eager library director. So I do want to thank them for taking the time to kind of learn, and hopefully over time, I'll just wear them down.
What do you anticipate in the next 2 meetings? Is this library budget going to be revisited and revoted?
Now, in 2 years, I'll be able to answer this question like that, but I don't know the council and I don't know the community as well. I would think that, I would be surprised if the library wasn't mentioned. I'm hopeful that it will not, the decision won't be reversed, but I'm guessing that will be a topic of discussion. Yes?
Catherine, I just want to thank you for your work here and for alerting us and getting us involved and giving us this information. I think it's really important that we have a director that shares this with us because we do value this facility, obviously.
Yes.
And so thank you.
It was funny because one of the councilmen mentioned oh, good job, Catherine, you rallied the troops, and it's I knew the library board members in that room. You know what I mean? I don't know this community yet, but of course I want to make sure that we have an informed populace, and I've just been so impressed about the level of community support for this library. I've never seen anything like it. That's what made me interested in coming to Rapids.
I'm new to the area. We came from southeastern Wisconsin, and my husband had a job transfer. We've always wanted to live up here. I have to tell you, your staff speaks so highly of you, and I know you've only been here a short time, but when we moved up here, we knew no one. We came for a job, we came for a different lifestyle. It's very scary in Racine, very scary. We feared for our lives on many occasions. So to come up to the Northwoods and feel safe and feel embraced by the community, the library was the first place I went to when we moved to Wisconsin Rapids, because I love libraries. I've worked at 2 libraries. I live for libraries. And your staff truly became my first friends up here. I love your staff. I can't say enough about the people that work here. And I've really enjoyed this meeting and hearing from my fellow library lovers. This has been very informative, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I mean, look at this room. We're talking about the library's budget. I mean, can you even imagine? It's theoretically very boring, but look at the community turnout, right? Look at how many people shared the information we posted on Facebook, who called their friends because they saw the news clip. Again, this library is really something special, and I literally can't wait to see what we can do together.
So maybe this is the time to talk about that Friends of McMillan Library.
Friends, yeah, I mean, again, there's a foundation, but we do not currently have a Friends of McMillan Library, although already we'd be at a head because you know how I feel about the book sale. It's my nemesis. No.
44 people.
Eric.
So there seems to be, based on some comments from some of the council members, sort of a singling out of professionally trained master's level librarians here. Can you speak a little bit to why it's important to have people with master's degrees in those roles?
I love that question, yes. Yes, I think I think this question is so entangled with so many things right now, because directly related to the idea that the library is no longer relevant, right? Everything's on the internet. If you say that statement right now, I know that you don't really have the technological literacy to find the information that's correct. Like my mom is always grumpy when I use her as an example, but I'm going to use her as an example. She is an educator of like 40 years. She's so smart, she's so funny, but like she will fall for like those advertisements in social media like every single time. Doesn't matter the platform, doesn't matter that her daughter has spent hours trying to inform her about like this kind of scam. And I think that just kind of encapsulates how complicated information literacy is going to become in our future years, right? I mean, Gen Z, it's like something like 80% of them can't tell between like a sponsored link and a non-sponsored link. So we're dealing with human beings that haven't had that kind of information literacy, the ability to kind of navigate false facts. And we're seeing that play out, obviously, on a societal level. So the thing about a trained librarian is that we've been trained to kind of navigate those resources for you, right? Our job is never to point you in a direction. Our job is to kind of guide you to the information that you're looking for. And that's why we're always asking such annoying questions. And that's why, like, you can't stop me talking once I get going, because I want to give you as much information as time will allow, right? Because someone comes up to the circulation desk and asks for a book on whales, right? What would you do? My first question would be like, well, what kind of whales are we talking about? Are we talking about a whale in the ocean, or are we talking about whales the country? Because those are two pretty big differences, right? But already, I'm parsing out that information to figure out what exactly we need. And that is what my professional level staff have been trained for. Master's degrees are complicated, because I think to a certain point, we're getting going on something that's boring for everybody else, but very exciting for me. Like, again, it's complicated because I believe librarianship sometimes just, we're our own worst enemies, because the diversity of our librarians is kind of at loggerheads by demanding an advanced degree. That being said, do I think there's some value in spending time learning your craft? Yes. But there's many different ways you can gain that level of information, right? So I would argue that having professional level staff is essential to public library service. Essential. And again, like, the longer I'm in this role, the easier it will be for me to refute that, because looking at the DPI statistics that Councilman Delaney is so interested in, we actually don't have that many professional level staff compared to comparable libraries. There's lots of things I want to change. The titles of my librarians being one of them, they're all called managers, which is complicated because they are managers on duty, but they're not overseeing anybody specifically for the most part. And I prefer the word librarian over manager any day. But again, there's lots of things for me to think about. Like, we are going to do kind of some reorganizational structure in the library. So I think that will help. But ultimately, to value public libraries is to value the staff. So for me, it's kind of a straight line.
As a follow-up to that, since the majority of our budget is staffing, and if we did ever now or in the future face a large budget cut, probably some of those higher paid positions would
Change.
make the most impact to let them go. How would that change our presentation to the community, our staffing, our programs? How would that change things for us as a library?
So the library board and I obviously, and staff, did kind of start thinking about what we were going to do in the event of the 350 cut. And yeah, professional level staff, we have an open position right now, that would be the first to go. This library staff has not seen a layoff in years. And I would do my best to kind of keep the staff intact. But when you're cutting 30% of your operating budget, it gets really tricky. So professional level staff would go. Again, like talking about the organizational structure of the library, it does need to be totally overhauled. And I think that will long-term help with some of our staff expenses. Changing the schedule, I think, will also impact some budget as well. But yeah, losing another professional level staff has kind of significant consequences for staffing the makerspace, right? We are hoping to staff that like we do the circulation desk. Not all day, but we're ballparking 12 to 8. So community members of all humans can access that, right? Because this is what's so interesting about the makerspace. Some people, like myself, would never go in there unless it's like, boop, boop, boop. Someone's standing over my shoulder. I don't want to touch those machines. You know, and have like a very set formulaic program where I produce a result. Others, and this is where it really becomes important, right? Where do humans in general, but specifically grown-ups, get to tinker and learn right now? Never, right? Rarely. So I definitely want that space to be open for that level of exploring. And again, what we have to do as a staff is to make sure that people feel comfortable going into those spaces. And eventually, yes, a fancy machine will break, because we are a public library and things break every single day. But what's more important, fostering that creative learning or worrying about a goofy machine? So by losing that full time, it's the assistant director position that I'm talking about. Right now it's unfilled, but still in the budget for 2023. Those two things are kind of hand in hand. Now we don't have to fully staff the coffee shop, so I can take some bodies and move them around. So instead of staffing the coffee shop, we would be staffing the makerspace. But I will say, frankly, right now, staffing the 3 service points can be complicated. It can be difficult. It can be a stretch.
Dean Beneman spoke of getting money from the donations or whatnot, and I mean, I guess in the future that could be something that you, in order to fund the library. It seems complicated, but and I guess you talked about some friends of the library, but to throw that at such a short, I mean, who could come up with money in such a short time to make up the $350,000? So. Is there a bone you could throw at them in the future?
Well, Councilman Veneman and I talked about this, and I actually think this is a potentially disastrous idea. Library operations are too essential to rely on donations. We're a municipal library. Would the city clerk ever be required to run on donations? No. If you see how I'm building my budgets, and again, like this is my first year, this will be a change every year, but every year those miscellaneous funds will become less and less. We cannot be reliant on those, right? Again, because what happens when I sneak into the library at the middle of the night, burn all of the book sale books, right? Obviously I'm joking, but you know, what happens when we get rid of the book sale? If we do, right? What happens if we go fine free, which is a goal? those sources of revenue are not sustainable. We cannot be relying on them for operations. So I would respectfully disagree with Councilman Butman on that.
I agree with you, I just wanted to know if you, what your thoughts were on
I have
that. 'cause
spicy
thought
thoughts
was
about that. I have a lot of spicy
interesting
thoughts. I
thing to
mean,
throw out there.
There's so many cool things you can do, right?
Yeah.
We can just have donations instead of having people pay for our book sale, right? We can expand access to our collections and our services by removing the overdue fees. We're kind of creating barriers here to our own selves. We want to be opening the library, making it easier to access, not more complicated. Did you have your hand up? Oh, I thought I saw a hand up over here. No?
I have one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So about the book sale.
Yes.
So I look at all the, so this would go back to collections. And I just, every time I see that, I just have this like visceral reaction to why are all these books going away?
I love this question.
Collections.
I love this question.
You know, because I'm like, I look through them on a regular basis, and I'm like, this seems really, new and relevant. How come they're getting rid of all the hummingbird books? I don't know. So I just have questions about that, and how is that working out?
I love this question. So yes, we have a book sale, which means that materials that are outdated or damaged or no longer necessary, they go to the book sale. We also get some donations that end up in the book sale. We have a really strong book budget, materials budget. In 2022, our budget was $180K. Think of how many materials that buys. Every month we are purchasing thousands of books, and those books need to go somewhere. Outdated information for us is dangerous. The library is an authority. We need to be providing correct information. What would happen if a child who, fourth grader, had to come in, do a countries report, classic report, checks out a book on Czechoslovakia, right? Because those books still exist in library collections, though the country no longer does. Because people are so attached to those physical materials. And I would say, again, this is where the Venn diagram of librarians and book lovers has to diverge, because I have no romantic inclinations about materials, right? Not to be too, no, back it up. Every item in this library needs to prove its worth, right? We're a bustling library. We circulate hundreds of thousands of materials. If something isn't going out, if it's just sitting on our shelves, that's a missed opportunity for us. If something is outdated, it is dangerous. And at a certain point, humans are visual creatures, and they do not want to check out an ugly book. I know we say, no, this is real. I actually got into librarianship because of collection management. I started as I was going to be a museum human being, but instead I said, what's the most important thing you could do? Collections or information, right? So, libraries. But when you're thinking about collections, you have to think it in a broad umbrella way. And again, as a book lover, have you smelled the books?
Yes, because I bought them.
100%. And to me, no, gross. That book has circulated 50 times. It has been in someone's bathroom. Just the reality of a public library material. So if an item, for a book, hardcover book, if it circulates 26 times, that's average. That's an average number of circulations for a book. Does most books make it to 26 circulations? No. Because humans are humans, right? And the books are meant to be read. But at the same time, that book can be replaced with a different, potentially more relevant book. Because again, and this is where I could get really into stats, but most of our circulations come from our new shelves. That's why we bumped those upstairs, to try and trick you into walking upstairs. And it works, because that's where our circulations come from, right? Most of the time. New materials, large print, AV.
But you're making sure that you're replacing classics and keeping classics on the shelf?
We have a full section of classics, and Colin is in charge of that. He does replace the classics, and I've been teasing him because some of those classics look pretty bad.
How do you prove the worth of what you're spending $180K on for materials if you're replacing a book, let's say every 2-3 years or whatever? How do you, instead of wasting money, so to speak, I don't say that any book is a waste by any means, but how do you get your full value then of what you're spending if you don't expect it to have a very long shelf life?
Well, let's extrapolate that backwards. So what happens if we just cut the book, the full collections budget, right? The library wouldn't blow away, or would it? Because what are people interested in? That's actually the job of the professional level staff that have studied classes on collection development, youth literature, go to collection development webinars, learn what manga is popular at this moment. We use statistics to make sure that our collections are being used. We read reviews. But this is one of the reasons, the behind the scenes work, that the public doesn't know. But a lot of work goes into making this collection incredible. And while I personally do think it's a little grimy, and I'm going to have us start cleaning and everybody's going to be grumpy, I know we have an outstanding collection because we are in South Central, one of the largest library systems in the state of Wisconsin. South Central thinks it's the tops, right? We circulate more. Madison Public Library patrons request things from our library more than what we're requesting from them. We have an outstanding collection. So the team is doing an incredible job. Yeah, it's pretty great. But again, books need to be cleaned because people use them in the bathroom.
I have one other thing.
Yeah.
Being from Grand Rapids.
Yes.
And I feel like a schmuck in a sense, because we don't. But now I feel better because our money comes back from the county a little bit.
Nobody's a schmuck.
Mostly, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been talk in the past. Is there a way to envelope Grand Rapids? When I came in, I tried to do the aquatic center. I tried to get all the communities around to pitch in for it.
Yeah.
And this was 20 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Failed, but that's okay. Doesn't mean that we still can't be collaborative as communities. Is there a thought there could be discussion between the communities that we up our ante a bit outside of the county? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. So would individual townships
start to help
more?
Mm-hmm.
And
there are some of that.
There are a few examples throughout the state, but it's really difficult because again, you're going to a township with very limited resources and say your community members are already paying for this through their county library tax, but we want you to pay more. I've tried that in Rice Lake in a variety of ways. We went through like a capital renovation project, and so I was doing my song and dance around the communities, and though I am incredibly persuasive, nobody took a bite on that. So it's a hard sell. Do I think it's impossible? No. But I am also a Pollyanna. She's a public librarian. She's got rose-colored glasses on. But again, I think it's all in how you look at it, right? Because this is our opportunity for our staff. Me and Carrie talk about this all the time. How do we get more human beings in here using our services? Because really that's what it's about. Yeah.
Isn't it all about, this discussion for 2 hours, is establishing a sense of urgency in terms of looking at the library as an organization? And would you be open to collaborating with the university? At Stephen's point, there are professors that are looking for opportunities in terms of, they may be an assistant professor and they want to go have tenure and full professor, that a project could be with the business department for them to help you in terms of designing a marketing plan. Because it sounds, if that's what your goal is.
Well, I'm actually gonna push back a little bit. My goal isn't to create urgency.
Okay.
My goal is to inform our community. Give everybody the language to kind of understand the budget. And be able to talk about it in a general way. Because that's what I've seen firsthand. Even my staff, before I got here, didn't have kind of that basic language about talking about the budget. And if my staff can't articulate where we're getting our money, how would a human being that's coming to the library figure that out? So really that was kind of my main point. I want people to kind of have a deeper understanding of the library's budget. And do I expect everybody here to be able to answer a pop quiz on their way out? Yes. The human brain needs to hear this 7 times, right?
Yes.
But just to get that baseline of knowledge, to get it started. And to, again, more of a signal to the community that this is, I'm interested in informing us. And if people have questions, that they can come to me and ask me.
But don't you need a plan to do that? I guess that's what I'm saying. A plan and maybe a committee in terms of what is it we need to do. So your goal is to increase the number of people that come to the library. So isn't that part of the marketing plan, is to have people come and to spread the word?
Yeah.
And there are people, graduate students, there are people that do that, and do that very well. And isn't that the major goal? At least that's what I've been hearing for 2 hours, is in what ways do we market this library, this wonderful library? And what ways do we market it so we have people coming in all the time, so we don't have any downtimes? And what does this community need? I mean, we assume that it needs something, but what are the voices of your customers saying to you? What are their needs in 2023? And to look at that future. Like one of the things I noticed when I was looking at the website is there's no vision for this library. Any organization has to have a vision. What do you want to see on a magazine in 5 years from now that you have accomplished in terms of a vision? You have a mission statement. That mission statement could be measurable. All mission statements are measurable. And what are the core values that this organization, this library operates on? That's the whole starting. And then what are your SMART goals? What are your SMART goals for this year, for next year? And how do you deliver the accomplishments of those SMART goals out to the community? So you have people giving you donations, your friends at the library that hopefully you'll start again. How do you get more of that? And how do you engage this whole community in this wonderful building? When we have a literacy problem in this community, everybody knows that. What's the action plan to do something about the literacy?
So
those are all my,
just giant questions.
They are giant
yeah,
questions, absolutely. But there's help out there. The university, there are so many people at the universities that can help you with all of this. It's not like you're going to be out there on your own, because there are so many resources in this state, in this community, at the universities that can help you with this. And you're not going to do it alone because you'll die.
No, I'm not doing anything alone. I'm doing it with the library board and I'm doing it with the library team. We need to get our house in order.
Yeah, we do.
We don't have a value statement.
No.
We don't have policies.
And you don't have a vision. Where are we going in 5 years from now? And
But-
how are you gonna inform the community? And who's gonna get involved to help you actualize
But
that
yes,
vision?
but Sandra, are you hearing, we don't even have policies, we don't have procedures.
Right.
We've got a lot of work to do. This kind of just happened on top of all that.
That's right.
So yeah, I mean, it has been a lot and it will continue to be a lot.
Sure.
But we have discussed as the library board, the plan of service is overdue. It needs to be redone. But again, I don't want to go into that lightly. And things need to change in-house before I commit to making any kind of outward facing. I mean, we've been so focused on like incredible outward facing projects, right? The solar panels. I want us to focus internal, staff development, increasing programming, things really building block things, and then again, this team will just explode. But we've got to do the foundation building first.
Absolutely, you do.
Yeah.
No question about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, yeah, go for it.
Yay! Hooray! Yeah, we're excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah. We're excited for you.
Yeah. But yeah, so I am here. I love chatting with patrons. Don't have business cards yet, otherwise I'd be handing out my business cards, but I'm here and I work the desk. I'm on the info desk, so please come and find me. I love hearing about patrons. Don't love hearing about how much everybody loves the book sale. Or the coffee shop. Those are my two kind of like ugly. But no, I'm joking. I love chatting.
She will listen.
She'll listen. Then she'll send you a little trash can gif.
I second you get rid of the fines.
Oh yeah.
So you know.
Oh, I mean, Sweet Carrie held me back, which is so good because can you even imagine had I just come in here, boom goes the dynamite, poof. Thank goodness for this one. But yeah, having fines in 2022. I mean, talk about a barrier, Sandra. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, we don't need that anymore.
No,
Doesn't make sense.
I should just start doing presentations on going fine free. Oh, I love that idea. But yeah, I mean, people that can pay fines, it's not an issue. But once someone accumulates enough fines, they're never coming back.
It is an issue though for people
Well,
that can too.
it is.
I think it might be part of the reason I never came.
Yeah,
You know,
no. Yes.
you know, you have good intentions,
Oh my gosh,
they sit
yes.
there, and then you're paying,
And then you're stressed out about it. Yeah, I mean, like, again, my mother, a teacher, she uses the library all the time. She raised a librarian. She stopped going to her library. She doesn't live in my community, because she had a lost book. And she was so stressed about it. And I was like, Mom, every day this happens. Who cares? They don't care.
Well, you feel like they do, or they.
I know.
Or in past, you've had people that make you feel bad.
Historically, librarians have been a little grumpy about that. And we are working on changing those attitudes.
I hear that.
But yes, no, that's, again, when can I get rid of fines?
We do not have people's pictures up.
You don't have to come in the middle of the night to drop off your late book. In fact, I have a book that's 2 weeks overdue. Right now.
So why can't you just do it?
Why can't I just do it?
Just do it.
Well, technically it's a library board decision. So first I'll have to convince the library board.
Just do it.
And then I'll have to go to council and say, guess what? You want to cut me, but I also don't want to bring in this revenue. Again, it's less than 1% of our revenue. It can increase our circulation, which will in turn increase our county reimbursement. But again, I've got to do some, glad handing and chatting and emailing, and then maybe another presentation that people will just flock to. Go to Kiwanis with Sarah. But yes, any final questions? I'll be here kind of percolating if you want to come up and chat with me afterwards. Thank you so much for sitting with me. I didn't think we'd last 2 hours, but we did. We made it.